Is there another Jasmine? Because there can only be one. One of the worst people ever.
You can exercise your rights and still be an asshole.
Come to find out, we're much, much worse.
Can't expect everybody to take on that responsibility.
Everything that you truly wholeheartedly believe is absolutely wrong.
I think overall we just have to remember that they're humans too. They're people.
They may be a good person to me, but I don't consider them a good person. Listen without trying to convince each other.
Welcome back to Strangers Talking Politics. I'm Alli.
I'm Bethany.
And I'm Jesse.
Today we've got a new voice. Her name is Jasmine. Jasmine, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Jasmine Taylor. I am a community organizer and activist out of Great Falls, Montana. So just to be clear, anything I say today is my own personal opinion. I am not representing any other agency, organization, etc., etc. Just my thoughts.
Wonderful. We're happy to have you. Let's kick this off with an easy topic. I'm unsure if anyone's actually ever heard of this, but hear me out. This is from 6 years ago, to preface, just so everybody is aware. Am I the asshole for not voting?
Like right off the bat, my blood is boiling. It's absolutely boiling. I hate that so much. Oh, that makes me so angry when people don't vote. It's like the baseline, barest of minimum participation in your own freedom.
I think that answer assumes a lot of things about who submitted that. And I say that simply because we spent the past year in Great Falls doing a lot of voter protection work. And so it was deep dive into the ways they keep people from voting. So, okay, cavalier tone, I would say this person probably had access to voting and just didn't. And that is kind of assholey, but they may not have had access. So benefit of the doubt. Maybe they didn't have access.
Oh, fair point. Fair point.
I am not anti-American in any way, but I hate everything about our voting process. I hate the constant disparaging ads. I hate the fact that I get 5 to 10 texts per day from candidates telling me to vote for them. I hate that Republicans and Democrats are the same people working for the same big money corporations. I hate the fact that 2 presidential elections in the past 20 years have been won by the candidate who got fewer votes. Am I the asshole for not wanting to support a system that I believe to be fundamentally broken?
I mean, no lies detected, but also, unless you're actively doing something to change that system, your participation or lack thereof isn't what's gonna fix things. You can participate in the super shitty system while working to change the system. And again, if you have access to voting and you don't do it, that's a bit problematic.
Yeah, it's interesting through the description, right? I fundamentally understand it, especially when we're talking about the protest vote in the last, or the lack of, the protest don't vote in the last election and the big difference that made. I have such mixed feelings about that because I understand the protest, I get it, and I understand why, and I understand the frustration because it's a common sentiment. But similarly to what Jasmine has said, I just don't see how it is that you can just feel like you can just opt out and it'll all just be okay, because then when these policies harm you, then when these policies take your job, when they push you into higher taxes, when they threaten your family or your personal rights and you haven't participated, that's not an opt-out, that's an I give up. And when you're talking about a democracy, it takes everybody.
I'm going to come into this from a little bit of a different angle. I do think we have a responsibility to vote, and it's a good thing to do, but ultimately expecting the average voter to feel personally responsible for how, our democracy is run is pretty unrealistic. And it's something that we see not just with the vote, but we see it with climate change accountability. We see it with all different types of advocacy, that it's really difficult to expect any sort of real change from one person voting individually or one person recycling, whereas community action and getting out and getting involved in changing policy through going and talking to the legislature or attending the city council meeting has significantly larger impact than an individual's vote.
I will point out that 2 comments. One person said, "You're not the asshole. Although you should vote for the change you want, it's your right as an American not to vote." And then someone underneath that said, "You can exercise your rights and still be an asshole." Someone said, "You're the asshole. Non-voters aren't rebels. They're the people the system loves the most." And someone said, "There's more to stake than just the politicians. There may be state and local measures that address public policy matters, tax matters, public health, education, etc. Also, some states have elections on judicial appointments. Just because you don't agree with any politician doesn't mean you can't vote for the measures that do affect your life and the life of others." Update, you guys have actually changed my mind. I'm going to vote, at the very least, for the amendments that I support. And then update 2, I just got home from voting, and while I left some sections blank, I am overall glad that I went. I guess I was just being a little too cynical about the entire process.
I think that's also plays into a good point, right? One of the points I think we should make about this particular topic, because it is so prevalent, is that this also speaks to the fundamental change that needs to happen in how we persuade voters. From the beginning of this podcast, we've talked about authenticity. We've talked about speaking to the people. And when your tactics are creating this kind of sentiment, this is not an anomaly by any means. This is a common sentiment that I have found, throughout all kinds of conversations with all kinds of people. Perhaps it's time to change the way that we do things and this is the change to the system that we're talking about. I think a lot of voters get fatigued because of all of the bombardment just to cast their one vote, just to see no major policy change that's making a huge difference in their life or that they can tell is doing so.
I gotta throw in there, though, the idea that one vote doesn't matter, I think that resounds on a national level, surely. But at the local level, one vote makes a tremendous difference. Tremendous difference. And just this last cycle in Great Falls, we were able to get out some of the most horrible extremists by doing crossover voting in the Republican primary, which is totally legal. And in my district, we got out one of the worst people ever, Stephen Galloway, by less than 100 votes. And that was an activism push, but directly related to voting. And so I don't know that I buy the idea in general that inaction is a rebellious act. I don't know a lot that gets accomplished through not doing something. Maybe the thing you're doing isn't perfect and maybe you do it in tandem with other stuff, but I don't know. I don't think it's revolutionary to not vote. I don't find that revolutionary at all.
They were voted the asshole, and this was 6 years ago before, not that voting hasn't always been tumultuous, but we know that recently it definitely has been. So even then it was the asshole, and even a lot of the not the asshole people were basically still calling him an asshole. They were just technically it's your right, so no one can be mad at you for exercising your right or whatever the fuck you want to say, but kind of still are the asshole.
Yeah, it's a group project, and we all know what it's like to have that one person that doesn't pull their weight in the group project. So I get the frustration, right? I think Jasmine made a great point. What gets done by inaction? Really not much. No matter how old it is, I think it's a timeless question. And I think it's something that even if we looked at it from a little different perspective of the fact that as an American, I think part of the privilege of the freedoms that we have and that have been fought for us to have is the responsibility that comes with that privilege, which is to participate in the democracy and to do the hard thing, even though it's difficult and we don't like how it's all going.
One of the last comments I'll read is, they started it off by not the asshole. You have the right to vote if you're a citizen, although you're not obligated. They had a whole paragraph basically going into that, and then they ended it. And this is what I mean by people basically still calling them an asshole. They ended it with, however, do realize that not voting won't change the system. Sure, it's pretty broken. It's just better to vote and maybe help fix the system rather than being complacent about it.
Have you ever had an opinion about politics and thought, I wish I had a podcast to share this? We've got the product for you. For 4 small payments of $4.96, that's only $19.84. You can have your opinions read out loud on the World Wide Web. Just go to stppod.com for more information.
Thank you to MCAT for letting us use their studio space to record a fun little show in no way that points out any flaws or criticisms of the government.
Hey Bea. Hey Alli. Gee, I sure wish I knew where to find more information on our guests.
Well, do I have wonderful news for you. You can find all of their information in the description.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and you can find links to everything they're talking about.
That's amazing.
Isn't it? Back to you in the studio, Jan.
Welcome back from commercial break. For those too young, a commercial break is kind of like never mind. I hope you're all ready for everyone's favorite game show, the best and worst of legislation. Okay, so let's start with, one second.
We're going to start with doing the best. Contestant number 1.
I like the bill that was proposed to raise taxes on secondary homes while lowering taxes on first homes.
Wonderful. Contestant number 2.
Okay, Representative Donovan Hawk, the only one that I'm aware of that is doing anything about the Elon Musk shit. He has a bill that basically is calling on our congressional reps to do something about Elon Musk and Doge accessing our private information.
Okay, two big contenders now for the final. Contestant number 3.
I'm a big fan of a bill from Kelly Cordham out of Bozeman that requires rental agencies to refund rental application fees if you are denied.
Okay, let the voting begin. Okay, discussions have completed, and let's see who our winner is. Contestant number 1, who's your vote for?
I'm with you, fellas.
Contestant number 2?
Gosh, I've got to say, I've got to go with Kelly Cordham's bill. Kelly, that's like one of a slate of badass bills from him. So, still fuck Elon Musk, but we're voting for Kelly.
And contestant number 3?
I think Donovan consistently puts forward great bills, and that's just one more from him.
Y'all are killing me. This didn't come out with a clear winner. All right, hold on. I'm putting it into a wheel of names. This is why I said I'm okay. Wheel. Oh my god, I can't spell. Wheel of name. Wheel of name. I'm gonna do 1, 2, and 3, and whoever wins is the winner. Spinning.
After much deliberation and careful consideration, the winner is contestant number 2. Tell us why you chose what you did.
Well, I feel like it's really weird that we're all being super calm about the descent into fascism, and there's only one person that we've elected that's acknowledging it. So yeah, no, this isn't normal, and we really should be doing a lot more than this. So at least Representative Hawk is taking step 1. But guys, we're super duper underreacting.
Fair point. Okay, now up for the winner of the worst legislation. Contestant number 1, what have you got?
Any of the trans bills qualify as the worst for me. When it comes to human rights, that's a hard line for me.
Very true. Okay, contestant number 2, who's your worst?
Okay, some of the worst were already defeated. So worst remaining is the marijuana bill trying to limit THC to 15%.
That sounds like a bad time for me. And contestant number 3.
So I think if we had to pick worst legislator, it might go to Lucas Schubert. And he introduced, I think it's House Joint Resolution 22. This one's just bad because it's a waste of time. It's impractical. It's never going to go anywhere. But House Joint Resolution 22 that declares Christ is King.
And on that note, time to vote. And the winner for the worst, unsurprising, is going to have to be contestant number 3. Why'd you pick Jesus?
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for the vote. The bills that Lucas has put out throughout this session have been, for the most part, mean-spirited, cruel across the board. This one, on the other hand, is just a waste of time. It's only intended to own liberals and to piss people off. It's not going to do any good, and it's just one more example of Lucas Schubert being a troll with his elected position.
Thank you so much, contestants, for joining us on... Hold on, what was the name? What did I name the show? Hold on, pause. Thank you so much, contestants, for joining us on the best and worst of legislation. Have a good night. Okay, and there's going to be really fun.
Yeah.
I know none of us brought it up, but I probably should have thrown out the best is Medicare expansion getting through.
Yeah.
I mean, that might have the largest impact across the board for the most Montanans.
Yeah, and it's got some pretty decent support. It's going to
They have to stop
argued pretty
calling it
progressive,
Medicaid
but-
expansion, though. We ain't expanding shit. It's what it's been for years and years. It makes it sound controversial. So,
True.
Jesse, please tell the Democrats they need to fix their messaging on that.
Yeah, Jesse, you know all of them, right?
That's an uphill climb.
I think you might, though. I think you might
Yeah.
actually, Jesse, I think you might know, every Democrat in Montana.
Probably.
Well, I think the latest strategy for Democratic messaging now is to teach people how to curse in a way that's authentic. And I wish I was joking about that, but...
Are you serious? Because if you have to teach it, it's not authentic.
Curse is in swear or I put a spell on you, like what I do.
Well, I think they've focus grouped the appropriate number of times you can say fuck without alienating baby boomers.
Why do we care about alienating the baby boomers?
Yeah, aren't they going to die soon?
Right.
I mean, one can hope.
Fuck. That was an inside thought.
That's one too many.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're
Damn
just
it.
going to have to,
Yeah.
There's lots of those.
But
Probably cut that one out.
No, I like, but when you said that, Jesse, when you said teaching how to cuss, my first thought was, you know who cusses real good? Bad Baby.
Catch me outside. How about that?
Put her in a room. She could teach people how to say, like,
Yeah.
just the I don't know. She cusses real good. Anyway, that's a whole different topic.
Yeah. It's interesting that there's like a threshold. Like you can curse 3 times, but any more. But see, here's the thing. This is what I don't understand is like, I would think that they would know that when it comes to cursing, there are certain words that are resonate with boomers. Like you could say things like goddamn that are going to have a bigger impact than the F word. Basically anything out of Gran Torino.
I think this is like the very problem though. Like the minute you start like altering how you speak to try to get people from a certain group to like you, you're not being authentic. You cannot do both simultaneously. Like you're acting or you're not acting. And people can usually tell when you're acting. And I think it's probably when you count how many fucks you're allowed to use in like one interview or whatever. Although I would think the Democrats prefer 0, has been my experience.
Right. I think it goes to that the Democratic Party will do anything in its power to avoid having to put forward an actual blue-collar worker as a candidate.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, right? Because when we're looking, there's a lot of people that are trying to diagnose what is wrong with the Democratic Party at this point, and I feel like the Democratic Party is at a real crisis of inflection, right? You are either going to continue to work for big money and try to pretend like you are advocating for the working person, or you're going to be with the working people, and we're going to have to do it the hard way, even though we won't get that big billionaire donation during elections.
Since we went into the green room and now we're all talking after the game show, how do you communicate with people on the other eye, like across the line? Like, how do you communicate with people? Because I find it personally really hard in my regular life. Like, if I was sitting down with somebody doing this, I would be very open and because I would be in that space. But like, if it's in my personal life, I can't, like, I see people out with like the MAGA and like the cult shit, like, and it really does like drive me crazy. And I know that there's a part of like my brain that's like, you should try to talk to these people and see if you can, but it's also like, how do you deprogram somebody from being, because it's a cult. And I don't think Republicans are, I don't associate Republicans with Trump supporters. If like, they're separate in my mind, but how do you talk to them?
I don't know that so I think that you have to establish if it's someone who is worth talking to. And I don't mean what like worth as in their value as a human. I mean worth as in, is there a basic starting point? Because I think by and large, even Republicans and Democrats in Montana do talk to each other. That's just, I mean, it's a very small town, but like there have to be some basic agreements. If you don't agree that all people are equal, then there is no room for a conversation to begin for me. There's like, I'm not interested in changing your mind. I am not a deprogrammer. So no, you will not get my time or emotional labor. If we have at least that basic agreement, there's tons of room for discussion about basically everything else. Like, but I think the people that most want to engage are the people with mega things that do not share that basic value. So no, I'm not going to spend time deprogramming people that have that different of a worldview.
Well, and I don't think you should have to. I mean, expecting somebody to put themselves in what frankly could be a dangerous situation at times isn't realistic. We've had difficulty with, in parts of the left, though, is not just that we don't have people who are willing to have those deep programming conversations, whatever you want to call it, that we have gone beyond that to alienating in some ways the people who will have those deep programming conversations. And we have to make sure we have a place that some people can have those conversations. I mean, there's always going to be, I can't remember the name of the guy who, I mean, he spent his entire life deprogramming KKK members. And there is a place for that, but we can't expect everybody to take on that responsibility.
That is a fair point. There's a part of me that feels so bad for people that got sucked into it because I just don't know how you would even get out. Like my partner said something one time about how it's like, it's hard for people who are in it to basically, to paraphrase, it's hard for them to admit that what they're in is dangerous or wrong because it is world shattering. Like to admit that everything that you truly wholeheartedly believe is absolutely wrong. And it's like, at some point we need to try to reach these people, but there's also like kind of a really cynical part of me that's just like, fuck, give them their own fucking island, like send them somewhere, because there's just I don't think that there's any getting through to people. If you at this point in time still fully 100% support Trump, I don't know that there's a way out of that. Like, is that too cynical?
No, that's strategic. And I think Trump supporters are not representative of even the majority of Americans. Look at how many people do not vote at all. Separate issue. There is no return on investment in those conversations. Whereas there are a lot of people where genuine discussion could move them to action, could change their point of view. Like, there's no reason to play the game on the hardest level possible, especially when there's very little reward at the end of it. Find the reasonable people. They outnumber the crazy people.
They do, but there can be really great rewards when it does work. It was do you know, Jasmine, do you know Dakota's last name?
Dakota Adams, yeah, and he's great at deprogramming.
Not just great at deprogramming, but somebody who, I mean, went through it on the other side. And if it hadn't been for people being able to reach out to him and his family, after, what was the organization his dad led?
The Proud Boys.
Was it Proud Boys, or
was it Patriot Front?
I think it might have been Patriot Front.
I'd have to Google. And yeah,
it literally was his father being sent to prison that provided the opportunity for him and his siblings and their mother to escape from. I mean, that was very much a cult, sort of an end of days cult with a very militant worldview.
Well, there are basically two reasons that humans change. Either they have to, i.e., if they don't, maybe they'll die, or they'll go to prison, like you guys were just talking about, or they'll have a personal experience that shakes the fundamentals of what they're involved in because it is personally tied to them and to their heartstrings. I had a conversation with a friend of mine named Nancy from Georgia. She's amazing. And we were talking about this because it's really difficult, especially with things so hyperbolic. I personally am struggling because I see so many people that I know and love acting in ways that I don't recognize of who they are. These are not the people that I know. And it's very frustrating because I just want to shake them and say, wake up. Where is the person that I know? But I think one of the important things to remember is, first of all, we have to remember their humanity, right? These are people too. And as somebody who has come out of a fundamentalist Christian environment myself, as somebody who came out of being a Republican myself, I know that it can and will happen eventually. And there's going to have to be a place for those people to engage. There's going to have to be not necessarily a soft landing, but there's going to have to be people that are willing to engage with those people as they're beginning to deconstruct these things. And I think part of that is planting seeds, right? Asking questions relating to their personal life. When we keep things on this broad level, that's intangible or that is disaffected to us, it's harder to invest versus when we can see, hey, how would I feel about that? One of the questions I recently just asked somebody when we were talking about immigration and going into like schools and hospitals and things, I said, would you want the government going into your child's school to arrest your child to get you to turn yourself in? And this person couldn't answer that question, didn't want to. Fair enough, right? I said, and what if it was for a worse crime than trespassing? When you start asking questions like that and you start putting things into personal context, I think it starts to challenge a little bit. And my hope is always that I can lean on what I know of those people and the decent parts that I know of those people a little bit and play into that. I think overall, we just have to remember that they're humans too. They're people.
Yeah, I think it makes me lean a little bit more towards with Jasmine, though, that like all of that is true. But if they're so far into it, I don't think that anything you say is going to get through to them. And I agree with Jasmine that I just don't think that those people who are so far into it are worth your time. Like if they start to deconstruct on their own, I will 100% be open to then having a conversation with you. But if all you're going to do is try to argue with me and well, I would never do anything wrong, so that question doesn't apply to me, like that, then it's like, yeah, is there even a point?
Yeah, you definitely have to pick and choose your battles. And I think you're right. I think not everybody can be the idiot whisperer, which is probably a mean way to say it. But I think that's it, especially when you're dealing with people who will literally, I mean, they'll tell lies they'll make up their own lies for this guy, even when he's saying the exact opposite, just to perpetuate the cult mentality. So, it's not 100% efficacy. I think I just try to remember that I can't just automatically disengage because I see a MAGA hat. I have to still be open to have a conversation, but I also have to be guarded and have strict boundaries.
Thank you for sharing that. That was really personal, and I appreciate you sharing that. I think for me, these are two different questions. I think the question of how do you have difficult conversations is worthy of having. But on the point of mega, I respectfully disagree with you because I think centering mega people is not what's important right now, and focusing on how to message to them centers them. I'm not interested in centering them. I'm much more interested in having conversations with people who don't have those beliefs and are either not involved or are prevented from being involved in solving problems. That said, I think you and I have some similar things in our background and how we were raised. I've come away with the belief that I can have someone who treats me well, but also treats people perhaps within marginalized communities really poorly. And so they may be a good person to me, but I don't consider them a good person because the totality of how they treat people is antithetical to how I believe. And that's how I feel about mega people as a whole. It is too antithetical for me to engage, like full stop. And I respect anyone that has the capacity to, like, more power to you, but I know that's not my role. But for difficult conversations, I think you just have to be willing to listen without feeling like you have to concede or accept their truth as yours. If you can both listen without trying to convince each other, you're going to get much, much further.
Yeah, I 100% get where you're coming from. And I really like the way that you put that. You are right. There are people who can be good to a specific person, but then have these views or, these attitudes towards marginalized communities. And for me, that's a dividing point. That's a point where I can't see somebody in the same light. If you can't afford everyone that same consideration, then I don't think you should waste your time trying to afford it to me.
That's a great way to put it. And like for me, an imperfect correlation is like there will be people that are very chill with me because I'm a bisexual woman who's very feminine, but they don't like trans people. Okay, well then you're not okay with queer people to me. I don't care if you accept me as bisexual. It's all or nothing. So for me, human rights is all or nothing. Either we're at that basic level or like we're not going to probably talk.
I get that a lot too with the being in the queer space. Like I use she, they pronouns, and the only reason I continue to use she is because it's convenient for other people. But like it's the same thing. Like I'm feminine presenting most of the time, so I'm okay for most people. I'm also white. So like that's another check that I have that people can check that box off and go, okay, well, she's not one of them, quote unquote. And that is going to lead us into a whole different conversation.
Yeah, that's come to find out we're much, much worse.
Yeah, literally.
The library will be closing in 15 minutes. Please make your final selections and take them to the checkout area. Please return all laptops at this time. Those using meeting rooms, please end your meeting, clean up, and vacate the room. Thank you.
I think this was a wonderful conversation.
Before you go, where can we find you online if our listeners want to find your content?
Yeah, so I run a blog called What the Funk. You can find me at WTF406.com.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you being here today.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
That was so fun.
She's got really good energy. I like her energy.
Yeah, it was really good. I think it was a really interesting conversation. And we will see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you for joining us on Strangers Talking Politics. Don't forget to check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube.
Bye.